This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll call the Village of Ashwaubenon Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting to order for Monday, September 14th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Mike Malczewski,
Here.
Randy Johnson,
Here.
Leroy Vogt,
Here.
Kyle Jago,
Here.
Dale Schmidt,
Here.
Jessica Ashton,
Here.
and Annette Amateur will be late at the back.
Customary to recite the pledge.
Of the United States and to the republic
For which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda as presented, any changes, deletions, anything else?
We need a motion.
Yep.
I motion to approve. This is Dale.
Second, Randy.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Action on the minutes from the regular meeting, July 13th, 2020 at 3:30.
I looked them over. I can make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Motion. We
This
have
is Kyle. I will second that.
a motion and a second to accept as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. Comments from the public? Seeing none, we will dispense with 6A, B, C, D, E, and F. And move right to number 7, discussion and possible action on electric bikes and scooters. Our presenter is Randy Bailey. Go
Well,
ahead.
yeah, so I guess I wasn't sure exactly what you're looking for in information. I can discuss this in a couple different ways. I guess what is the board looking for? Just feedback on e-bikes, etc. How they're being used.
How they're being used, what's the sort of sales level compared to regular bikes, general information.
Okay, sure. Well, I'll just give you a little bit of background. In my 20 years of selling bikes, we've been watching the experiment we call e-bikes. And about 7 years ago, Bosch Manufacturing, who does a lot of industrial parts, etc., got involved with the e-bikes and really refined the usage of the batteries and the motors and made the bikes much longer range, lighter weight, easier to use. And in the last 5 years, they've just exploded. It's went from our stores from not a category to our #1 category as far as dollars. So they're definitely selling, and it's a tool that is helping a lot of people really enjoy the sport of cycling. Cycling, as many of you might know, is difficult going uphill for all riders. The more fit riders just go up the hill faster. And the wind is always an issue. So with e-bike, the rider can boost up that hill or into that wind, which really opens up a trail system for them. One of my favorite customers is when we have generally I say a husband and wife. I won't say the wife is slower. Sometimes it's the husband, but one of the riders is slower, and they both want exercise. And with a Class 1 e-bike, it'll go up to 20 miles per hour on your pedaling. You're the throttle, so you have to pedal the bike. It doesn't just go out as a scooter. Each rider can get their exercise. Let's say one wants to ride at 9 miles an hour and one's comfortable at 12. Well, that 3 mile an hour difference can be made up for with the motor, and it puts two riders together all day long versus one waiting for the other, and then eventually they don't ride together anymore because not convenient. So that's kind of been our main focus, is just that type of rider. We generally sell class 1 and class 3 e-bikes. Are you guys familiar with the class of the bikes, how they are classified?
No, go ahead.
Sure. So I was at the state capitol working with the transportation group there, which I think this was last year, and then this legislation finally went in for the state of Wisconsin here this last spring, I want to say, where class 1s up to 20 miles per hour, pedal assist, and that's what we sell in our store here, and those have been probably the most popular. Class 2s are all of that, but then they have a scooter option or a throttle option, which makes them a motorized vehicle. We don't sell those. Trek doesn't make those. They are a useful tool for some riders, but they're really not, I should say, taken on any bike paths, or they shouldn't be. I mean, it's a motorized vehicle. And class 3s are pedal assist bikes that'll go up to 28 miles per hour. So when I say up to 20, you're the throttle. So as you pedal the bike, when you get to 10 miles per hour, if you go to maximum assist, it'll double that to 20. So on your 10, it'll go 20. And on your 14, it'll go 28 on a class 3. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. But it's only getting more and more popular. And it's not just one segment of riders. We have riders in all types of cycling, whether it be a mountain bike or a road bike or a city path bike, and different materials now as well, whether it be aluminum bikes or carbon fiber bikes. So it's a full spectrum of bikes that are available with the electric assist. And it's an exciting time. It's taking a lot of technology that's been in bicycles, and it's kind of putting it all together into one package, and really opening up the idea of riding for a lot of people. That's kind of in a nutshell.
Are the electronics, can you purchase them as a kit and put them on a regular bike, or do they come only on the production e-bikes?
So the a kit can be purchased. We don't work a lot with the kits, but it is something that's out there. And right now, the e-bike, I really kind of call it the wild, wild west. If you go online, you'll see 100 different brands of e-bikes. You'll see bikes ranging from $500 to over $10,000. And a lot of our customers come in kind of scratching their head going, what do I do? Well, the one thing that we encourage is bikes that are serviceable. A lot of the bike shop guys like myself had no interest in the e-bikes for the longest time because we're bike guys. We know how to work on the bike parts, but these electric motors and batteries and things like that, that's not in our wheelhouse at all. When Bosch came along, they really opened that up for us. We can do full diagnostics in our store, and we can service any of the bikes we sell or any of the Bosch bikes and just plug it in. And if we don't have the answers, when it's on screen, we can bring in a Bosch rep to look at that information, and they can help us with error codes, et cetera, and get the right parts to fix that bike. So we can fully service the bike. And why I'm saying that is because if I were to sell a kit or another brand of bike that I'm not familiar with, I don't have that confidence. And so like our shops, we turn away all other business with other e-bikes that we're not familiar with. We just don't even deal with it because there's too many things that could go wrong, and then we're liable. So we turn away a lot of business on the e-bikes that we don't sell for servicing. And it kind of keeps some people kind of on their back foot. They're like, well, I just bought this bike for $1,000 online, and now you're telling me I can't fix it. I go, well, you can fix it, but we're not going to fix it. And a lot of our other bike shop crews are like that. So we're telling a lot of customers when they go and see these parts online, it's like, you can buy that, but I'm not sure who's going to service it for you. And sometimes our customer has that mechanical background or electrical background and they can do it themselves, and that's great, then absolutely save the money. But if you don't have that and you're looking for a simple product to function for the life of the product you think it should have, then I would get something that's serviceable. So
Randy, this is Dale Schmidt. I got a couple questions. You said at the beginning, you made a statement that your dollar volume was e-bike. Well, an e-bike costs more than a regular bike, obviously. What is your quantity? Is there a high volume number as well for the e-bike versus a standard bike?
it's growing. It's not something I want to share.
You don't. I just want to know the difference between the two. Is it quantity or is it dollars?
It's dollars. I was communicating dollars. In an average e-bike is about $2,500 with us.
Okay.
And in each store though, we had a couple of doubling years the last 2 years. Now this year with COVID, it softened a bit in the spring because a lot of riders weren't able to ride, or in a lot of our group of riders is probably a 50 plus age category who were sheltering more, weren't getting out as much. But that changed in the summertime. So it's a growing category by far, and it's a fun category because it's really helping a lot of riders enjoy the sport.
That was my next question, was age group. So are you seeing a higher percentage? I would think you'd see a higher percentage in the upper age group, being in the upper age myself.
So where we see that really popular is, I don't know, 45. It starts at 45, really 45 to 55. But a lot of our 60 plus customers who've enjoyed, some of them are new to cycling. I get guys coming in every once in a while like, hey, I just retired and I want a bike. I'm like, well, why didn't you bike the last 30 years? I was too busy. I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, we try to help everybody as best we can, but we do get some people that have just retired and now they like, wow, my doctor says I should exercise, but I don't want to ride up these hills. And they've got the time and they've got the money, so they'll buy a couple of e-bikes. But then we also have some younger people who buy the e-bike, for example, on the mountain bike side of things, and they use them for hunting because they can get out in the woods with no gas smell, no sound, and instead of walking back a mile, they can ride back 5 miles almost the same time. So that's a pretty cool use of the product. And then we have some of our younger riders take the mountain bikes on trails when they want to do the downhill side of things, like in Wausau, but they don't want to climb the hill. So the e-bike helps them get back up the hill, and they can do more laps on the fun side going the downhill. So there are some people that are, say younger, getting the product, but I'd say over half, if not 70%, are probably 50 plus.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of questions from those people on the rules and regulations, road versus trail?
Yes, we do. What we try to do is let them know, one, on the bike paths, be respectful. Two, obey the speed limits. And if you're getting a class 3, stay off the bike paths. Even our experienced road riders or even fitness bike riders, I saw a statistic you guys are probably familiar with it. Was it last at the Foxford Trail this last year, or April 19, they had 20,000 approximate users, and then 2020, same month, they had 60,000 approximate users. Well, that's a 3 times growth because of the virus and people wanting to get out and exercise. There's a lot of new riders on that trail too, and if you get people zipping around, whether it be motorized or non-motorized, you're going to have problems. We try to let people know it's like, hey, use it to the speed limit of that trail. But what we find is a lot of our more mature customers aren't speed demons. They're getting this e-bike because they love to ride, but they don't have the muscle to get up a hill. Or they love to ride and they don't have the muscle to get into a wind. And I've got one customer, he might be close to 80. He's got a regular bike. that he rides when it's not windy, and he's got his e-bike for the windy days. So
Hmm.
if it's windy, he rides the e-bike. If it's not windy, he rides his regular bike. He loves to ride, and but he doesn't want to miss a day.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Randy, this is Kyle. I guess that kind of addresses one probably misconception. You know, we've in the past just touched on, you know, how fast they go, 20 or 28 miles an hour. And the fear is, well, do we want people riding 28 miles an hour or even 20 miles an hour around town or on village streets? And it sounds like, although theoretically possible, that in reality, that's not the way these bikes are being used. Is that correct?
I would agree with that almost 100%. I mean, so I'm an avid road rider, and on roads I can average 18 to 20 miles an hour on my bicycle without motor, like many avid road cyclists can do. The e-bike customers that we're seeing are using it to help them enjoy the sport. And you know, when I talk with them and even ride with them in a test ride, you know, I'll take it. Okay, let's take it up to turbo, and they're like, whoa, no, I don't need to go that fast. But what the turbo is the top speed, and that's where it's going to double your power. But where they will use turbo, you know, let's say you're going to go up a hill and you're struggling at 4 miles an hour to go up the hill. Well, you can put it in turbo and you can spin a lighter gear, and suddenly you're going 7 or 8 miles an hour up that same hill. And you're just, all you got to do is turn the pedals over to get you up the hill. And when you work with somebody and they experience that, you just see the gears working in their head. And they're really quite excited about the sport because now all of a sudden everything opens up to them, and it's really kind of cool.
Randy, talking about going up a hill, that's the second question, but I was down at Elkhart Lake, and I don't know if you've ever ridden that course down there. The big
Road
hill,
America, yeah.
Yeah, Road America, the big hill, okay, the big hill. I went up that hill a couple different times, but, you know, I had two e-bikes that just went, you know, they made me look kind of silly going up that hill. But anyways, how many of your e-bikes that you sell, how many of them actually come back for, say, that are something's wrong with them?
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of touched on that a little bit up front. We were very reluctant to push and or bring in and promote e-bikes until Bosch came aboard. Bosch was the tipping point. They put the motor in the cranks of the bikes down by where the pedals are. It's centered and low on the bicycle, and they put the battery just on the down tube, kind of in the frame. It might be sitting on top of the frame, it might be in the frame. There's a few other configurations, but their technology is so solid. In the hundreds of bikes we've sold, we probably work on one of every 30 that has an issue, and we can fix it. So we don't get a lot of them back. And the ones we do get back, we can do firmware updates, check the error codes, and get these riders back riding same day or the next day. So that's been pretty outstanding. In the early days, 20 years ago, where we had what I call Generation 1 e-bikes, and many of you have seen these, the batteries in the rear wheel, and then the battery or the motors in the rear wheel, the batteries in a rack over the top of the rear wheel. And putting the motor in the rear wheel is a solution, but the rear wheel is also the number one failure point on any bicycle. Now you're putting a very expensive motor in it, and you're almost doubling down on your chances of problems with that bike. We still do offer those Generation 1 bikes because they're low cost. Our Electra brand offers one for about $1,500, and we bring it in as kind of a, because some people get a little nervous when they see $2,400 or $3,000 for a bike. It's like, wow, I wasn't expecting to spend that much. Like, well, we do have it start at $1,500 with this configuration, and it is good. It is a good system, but what the rider notices right away is the bike doesn't handle as well. You got that 6-7 pounds on that rear rack, and you got a really heavy back end on that bike. So it kind of feels like you're pedaling along with a couple gallons of milk on your back rack all the time, which kind of can throw you a little bit. So when Bosch came aboard, it really changed the dependability, and it went way up. And that's really what's opened it up for dealers like myself who are, excited to sell the product versus reluctant to.
Hi, Randy. This is Randy. Question on the state, any legal requirements, anything different between an electric bike and a regular bike except, well, even you said they can be on a trail, a class 1, but is there anything else from a class 1 perspective, age of rider or anything different from, so you need to know the different sets of laws or anything like that?
I think so. I think it's important. If you're riding city streets, obviously you're following the streets laws that are in place for bicycling and cars, which I believe are identical. I could be off on that, but I thought they're identical.
Okay.
The paths is where it gets a little murky, that people are trying to clear up, and that is what I said before is watch your speed. What's the posted speed on that bike path? I think a lot of the bike paths are they 15 miles an hour? But we have not seen that come up as a concern.
Okay.
The customers we've had come through, but people do ask the question, where can they ride this? And we let them know it's like, bike paths are fine. Follow the rules.
What are the rules, Rex, on our paths, like the Packerland path?
I don't know if we've ever set a speed limit. I'd have to check with the DNR where we got the grant from, if they have any standards in place, but we don't have anything posted about a speed.
Yeah.
I think, like, I always think of the Fox River. I know that's not an Ashwaubenon, but it's a very popular trail. Or the Packerland trail, that's closer to my house. I don't know if I see any speeds there as well, but I think, just a lot of riders will, if you're going to go 25 miles an hour down the path, you're really putting yourself at risk and others. So you might do it once and crash somebody or yourself, and I don't know if that's maybe not the best way to do it, but I think most people will kind of self-regulate that.
Hey, Randy, just a couple of real quick ones again. This is Dale. So, because I don't want to assume this, and as long as you're on the call, because I'm not that familiar with e-bike. So you were saying that they can control their speed. So do they set something that sets the speed, or do they have something like a hand throttle? And do they have a speedometer on the bike so they know what their speed is?
Yes. So the bicycle will have gears like a traditional bike. Most of them have 8 to 10 gears. So just one gear in the front, and then a shifter on your right hand side to change between those 8 to 10 gears. So you use your gears like a regular bike. Then on the left hand, you've got your computer with a controller. And on the class 1s and 3s, there's no throttle option. You're the throttle. So as you pedal, you engage the motor. When you stop pedaling, the motor kicks off. Bosch, who does the industrial parts, like if you're holding your smartphone right now, if you go portrait to landscape, that sensor is possibly made by Bosch. Bosch has a sensor in the bikes we sell that monitors the person's pedaling 1,000 times per second. So when you ease off, the motor kicks off. When you pedal, then it re-engages. That's really important because there are riders who, when they come in, they're nervous about, hey, well, I don't want to ride a fast bike. I just need some assistance. And I let them know, it's like as soon as you stop pedaling, that motor kicks off. As soon as you pedal again, it re-engages. And then there's a speedometer on there, so it'll show your speed, how fast you're going. And then you have four 4 ranges of assistance, and they basically go 25, 50, 75, and 100% of assistance. So
Okay.
you can monitor how fast you're going with the computer, and you can gauge how much you want to work based on the gear you're in, you know, the terrain you're on, and then the power setting you chose. So it's quite simple. I kind of joke with our customers, like, you know, I could talk to you for an hour about how this works, or you could ride the bike for 1 minute and answer all your questions.
Yeah. But the technology has made it what it is today.
Totally, the technology has been outstanding. These batteries, even our 400-watt battery, you get about 60 miles on a charge. So that's
Wow.
significant.
Okay.
Yeah, when they first came out, you'd have a battery that weighed 15 pounds and you'd get about 20 miles per charge. So now the battery weighs about 6.5 pounds and you get 60. And then they got one battery that's a little more dense that will get us close to 80 miles on a charge.
Is
All right.
pedaling,
Thank you.
is pedaling regenerative to charge the batteries?
There are some systems out there that do that. The Bosch systems do not. So the Bosch systems, when you deplete it, you'll plug it in to recharge it. Any other questions?
None for me, but I can tell you I appreciate the fact that you came on because I've learned a lot without having to dig up the research myself. So I appreciate
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to help. Like I said, it's a very cool tool for helping a lot of riders enjoy the sport. And like I said before, where we really see it really shine is, I'm going to pick on husbands and wives again, but you know, one of those spouses is you know, rides, you know, frequently, and maybe they like a 12-mile-an-hour pace, and the other is reluctant to ride but needs some exercise, and they're nervous about getting stranded, can't get up a hill, maybe they don't have the muscle to get up a hill. The e-bike puts those two riders together, and it's gold, because now, you know, maybe they are retired and maybe they have more time to spend together and they're looking for things to do. Well, here's a great way to do it, and they're both getting exercise, spending time together. So that's been probably one of the coolest things about the e-bike for us, is just helping these couples get out and ride together, where they may have not rode together for several years because one of them was too fast for the other, and the other one didn't want to burden them with their slowness. But now they can ride. Now they can ride together.
Makes sense.
Have you had any bikes come back? They had crashes, or, you know, I mean, are there more? I mean, I've fallen over on my bike a couple of times too already, but I mean, on an electric bike, you know, or e-bike, you know, I don't know if they're, you know, more susceptible to tip over.
Well, the bike weighs 50 pounds approximately. Some of the lighter ones are 35 and 40. There has been accidents. You know, whether the bike fell over in the garage and scuffed the bike, or there was a collision on a path. You know, so those have happened. That stuff's gonna happen. I don't know about riders that have gotten hurt, but we've fixed a few bikes that got banged up.
What kind of shoes do they wear?
A lot of our riders are riding just regular shoes, you know, just regular like street shoes.
Do they ride with cleats? I mean, or not?
Most of the e-bikes we're selling, they're riding a platform pedal with just a standard walking shoe, like a running shoe.
Okay.
You can, if you want, clip in, and then our road bikes that we've sold, then those riders are going into clip pedals and shoes, and that's just a different animal there, where you've got, you know, the pace they're trying to hang on with might be a 17 to 20 mile an hour pace, and on the road bikes, a lot of the road bikes are class 3s that'll go 20 up to 28. That person can can join that group.
Yeah, I've tipped over on my bike too already.
Yeah, it happens. It's I always tell riders it's not a very graceful way to get off.
No. Especially when you're stopped.
Yeah. No, it's uncomfortable, and it hurts your ego a little bit.
Thanks for all the information, Randy.
Are there different frame sizes?
There are, yeah. The bikes are gonna fit just like a standard bike for us, so we'll have 3 or 4 sizes per model to take care of riders that are 5 foot to 6'5".
Oh, cool.
Yep. So, yep.
So really, this is Kyle again. It's my impression that this is not, other than the way you power it, isn't really much different than any other bicycle.
No, I don't think so. I think it's basically a bicycle that has.
It's a bicycle that's easier to pedal.
It's easier to pedal, and it gives you the opportunity to get up and down some hills easier and into some wind for most of our riders, which is a big limiter for riding.
Other questions?
Not for me.
I got all mine.
Okay.
Randy, I know this was asked before, but is there an age limit for this?
Not that I'm aware of. What I would say though is it kind of self-regulates. If the bike costs $2,000, probably people under the age of 18 are not buying them for themselves. A parent might buy them, but that's pretty rare. Being a parent myself, I haven't spent that kind of money even owning a bike shop for my kids. So it's I think it's definitely 18 and up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I'm good.
No,
Thanks
I'm good.
again, Randy.
Yeah.
You bet. In closing, I just say if anybody wants to try one, stop by either of our stores. Be glad to get you out on a test ride and you really kind of see what they're all about. Or I could even bring some down to you guys are not meeting in person right now, so if that time comes, we could have a couple at the Village Hall too for just a demo.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the offer.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Wow.
Hey, Mike, this is Dale.
Okay.
Before we move on, so I see the gentleman, Ashwaubenon Public Safety. I don't know you. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes.
I'm Jason Demrath. I was just promoted to lieutenant, and they asked me to join as your advisor.
Congratulations.
Okay.
Well, good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
We're easy to
So
get
let me-
along with.
Go ahead. So Jason, let me ask you, do you ride a bike?
I do. I ride quite a bit. I ride probably 60 to 100 miles a week. So I get out on these trails like he's talking about quite a bit.
So you're more of a trail rider than a road rider?
No, I use basically Packerland Trail to get down and then I hit the country. So I'm on the road more.
I probably see you out there.
It's possible.
Behave.
You're probably passing me.
If you can, I'd give him a ticket.
Hey Dale, I don't ride over you.
Okay. Okay, we can move on. I appreciate that, Jason. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Number 8, site plan review, Kyle.
there were just a couple of things that came up. One of them was Rolltech Industries is doing an expansion of their facilities, and I asked that they have secure bike parking for the employees, and I said it could be either inside or outside, but just make sure it's convenient to the entrance. The other one was the planned unit development on what was the San Luis Manor nursing home is going to be apartments now. So I had two concerns. The first of all, that given that it's as close to Target as it is, there really isn't a good way to walk out the front door, and the front door faces San Luis, and get into Target without, there's a sidewalk there, but it makes it a mid-block crossing. So my concern is that they redirect the sidewalk to make it safe for pedestrians going up to Target. And then a number of the apartments are going to be small studio apartments. So I also had a concern that there be adequate place to safely secure bikes, whether that would be inside, or I suggested maybe they look into some bicycle lockers. There are bicycle lockers on the market that you can just lock it up or lock it up with your smartphone. So I guess those are the two concerns that I had on that development, just making it convenient and safe for pedestrians and also for bicyclists, because that's so centrally located. It would be convenient to have a bike and just be able to run down to the restaurants on Oneida Street or the library or Titletown. And if you're living in a pretty small apartment, it might be hard to store a bike. So those are the two that I had.
Okay. We can move on to 9 action items. Update from our great Public Works Director, Doug Martin, on village projects and pedestrian signs. Take it away, Doug.
That was a heck of an intro. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
About a half dozen projects to update you on. 2 of them are carryovers from 2019, 3 or 4 others from this year. Carryover projects from last year, as you all know, in 2019, they started the phase 2 of the Titletown development. And where that really impacts the village, other than, of course, the construction of the buildings themselves, was Brookwood Drive. Brookwood Drive was closed off from Ron Wolf Way, just west of the Bell and Health building, and was closed down to Marley Lane as they rebuild that area. This October, roughly, they'll be opening up the section of Brookwood Drive from Ron Wolf Way down to Ori Lane, basically the first block west of Bellin, the Bellin site. And that will have the new features of that roadway. If you all remember what the road used to look like, roughly 42 feet in width. It's changed to a narrower roadway, parking stalls off to the sides, bump outs for the crosswalk crossing, sidewalk on both sides. It's an amenity attached to the townhouses that are being built in that area. So that'll be the first project you'll see in that area that's impacting the roads and sidewalks in that area. That'll be coming out roughly this October. The second half from Ori Lane out to Marley Lane will be opening up. Their plan is to have that open by midsummer of next year. Right now, the townhouse construction is well underway. They have a few of them done. They have a few of them purchased. And they want that section of roadway opened up, A, so that we can go through there and start plowing, but B, so they can get traffic moving through there to see the places and see the amenities. The next block over is where they're building the apartments and building the office complexes, so they need that area blocked off still. They haven't completed the road in that area. They need that blocked off for staging their equipment, staging their supplies and materials for building those, constructing those buildings. So what you'll see on the first block will be very similar to what you're going to see in the second block next year. Make sense so far?
Yep.
Yep.
Can I just ask a quick one out of curiosity? The bump outs, are you talking about where they cross over to the road? Like De Pere has, where they got the bump outs by the schools and that?
Yes, like what you see in downtown De Pere in their business district, where you have
Yeah.
you have parking stalls, and then at the end of each block, you'll have bump outs so that the crossing across the road is a shorter distance.
Yeah. I'm
And
just curious how that works for them, like when you got a lot of snow and people can't see the curb, or you guys for plowing. I was always interested in, and you don't need to answer that. I'm just curious more than anything.
I think from a public works perspective, you'll know what my answer is when it comes to snow removal.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Enough said.
But it's understood that it's a great amenity in many other ways. But we also let the Packers know that in the development of those plans, there will be some parking stalls that, good, bad, or indifferent, putting all of those amenities together in a small area. When harsher winters hit, there is only so much room for the snow to go. So there might be a parking stall or two that will be limited in the winter months.
Okay. I was more curious than anything. You can move on. Thank you.
Second carryover from last year is the Cormier Road reconstruction from Oneida Street to Ashland Avenue. Kyle called me on it last week. Susie notified me that Tracy Fluke had called her asking about the painting of bike lanes. Bike lanes are striped, but the decals haven't been painted, and they are both correct. And the question is, when are they going in, and can we get them in as soon as possible? And I mentioned to Kyle, I didn't mention to Susie yet, two items on that project, and kind of in terms of the scheduling of that. When that project was first being designed, and I should step back a moment, that's an SDP funded project, so we're getting state and federal funding in addition to village funds on that project. When that project was first designed, there were a number of meetings on it. At one point it had wide outside lanes, then it moved to bike lanes, then the village board was deciding if they wanted the bike lanes all marked right at that point in time or not. And all during those decision points, there's a timeline that you have to get the project submitted into the DOT to get it into that program, to get it funded, get it scheduled for construction. So the bike lanes all made it through, and they made it through with the lines on them, but the village couldn't make up its mind quite yet if they wanted the bike lane symbols and actual dedication of the bike lane technically done. Just after the project went to the DOT and it got bid out, the village decided it wanted the bike symbols and everything in there, and it's full go ahead. That's great. The bad news from that is when you decide after the fact, it's in the state program, and you then have to change order that striping or that paint work in, which isn't a problem, but the cost for that came in about quadruple of what it normally should. Plus there's a percentage the DOT adds onto it for oversight. The cost was just silly to pay to put that little amount of paint down. So we have it in our striping plan for this year. This year, due to COVID and things of that nature, we received word from Brown County they're only striping, and that's who does our striping or used to do our striping. Brown County is no longer doing striping outside of their own work. So we have our plan out to 3 different contractors. They had work held over from last year and work that they were currently booked up for. So we have our striping work and the Cormier one submitted to them to get onto their schedule. And I think I mentioned this to Kyle. I said one of the items that's a little tricky is that the project on Cormier Road hasn't been closed out yet with the state. The state typically takes about 8 months to close a project out from final pay request. And until they give you the final okay on it, technically you're not supposed to be doing any, I don't want to call it defacing because I don't mean it that way, any additional work on the street, construction related, until they give you the sign off. Now, am I going to follow that if we get the contractors out there and painting between the dozen of us here? No, it's still going to happen, and I trust that nobody's going to say anything. So it's like a stew. It's in there. It's in the works. We're just waiting for feedback from the contractors in terms of schedule. Most of the contractors out there are looking for work. One of the areas it seems like public works departments and construction companies in general went to a lot more work this year was striping work. It seems like they dedicated a lot of funds to it because those contractors are jam-packed with work at this point in time. But we have it on schedule to get done. So Kyle, I think that's what I mentioned to you when you called me last week, and if Tracy wants to call me, or if you want to pass it on to Tracy, that's perfectly fine.
I'll reach out to Tracy. This is Kyle. So do you have a timeline, or have you not signed the contract yet, or?
I have not signed a contract yet. I have 3 contractors that have told me they're trying their darndest to get it on schedule. And I said, whichever one can get here first is the one I'll sign the contract with.
Okay.
The cost on all 3 of them were very similar. And they're the 3 private contractors that do this type of work. On to this year's work. And Rex, if I'm mentioning stuff that you briefed me on before, just tell me to shut up. I don't mind being told to shut up. Alden Station, the development along the Fox River, the old Schneider pumpkin patch, the Schneider maintenance facility. You've probably seen the curb and gutter asphalt go down over the past couple of weeks. They're out there today finishing off, performing up the last of the sidewalk work on the project. It's a 66 lot development. There's a trail that will be connecting to the Bay Harbor Trail. What's the name of that trail?
Ashwaubenon River.
Ashwaubenon River Trail. We'll be going along the river and along the creek and coming up by the Hanson Road South Broadway intersection, connecting into the sidewalk at that location. The sidewalk, or excuse me, the trail is for the most part cut in and gravel. If you drive past that site, you'll see at the south end of the site, there's an area that hasn't been filled in yet, and that is awaiting FEMA approval for filling. We can't fill, that's a wetland area and a floodway area that the village got approved to fill, but there is a 60-day comment period that FEMA has to put out there before giving the final permit approval. The 60-day comment period started in late February, and when COVID hit, the comment period was suspended until the stay-at-home orders were lifted. So we have the comment period currently underway, and FEMA has told us that we'll have the approval by middle of October. At that point in time, we'll be going in to fill the last of the site and construct the last portion of the trail at that point. Due to that timing, we'll probably have the trail in gravel over the winter and then pave it next spring. Along with that development site, there'll be street lighting going into the development. There'll also be decorative lighting going along the trail system as well. And this is the trail system that would tie into the potential bridge that would go over the creek and into the park, just to give you a frame of reference. Everybody's still awake. I can see everybody's faces. Nobody's asleep yet, so I'm going to keep going. You give an engineer a chance to talk, he's going to talk. Mike McCarthy Way, our next project. If you remember, we rebuilt Mike McCarthy Way between Ashland and Holmgren Way in 2018. Put a 5-foot sidewalk in at that point. Village wanted us to get the overhead utilities put underground through that stretch. That takes a little bit of coordination, as you can imagine, redoing the services for the businesses and properties along through there. So that work was happening. Design work happened last year. The construction of all that happened this summer. That work finished off in mid-July. And in beginning of August, the last of the sidewalk went from a 5 foot to roughly 11-foot sidewalk through that area. That work just wrapped up last week. There's a little restoration work that'll be happening this week, and that project will be wrapping up. WPS is out there, was out there last week installing the new light poles. And if you drive down it now, you'll kind of see it. It looks similar in nature to Potts Ave, or excuse me, Mike McCarthy Way, west of Holmgren Way. That was reconstructed in 2010 with a wider walkway, street lights, under all the utilities put underground. And this stretch has sidewalk on both sides. North side going down to Bart Starr Way, the south side going down to the access road. Let's see. One project that I think this is the last one. One project that we have hanging out there still, and we run into some troubles with, is the Ridge Road sidewalk. Probably the smallest project we have. The largest numbers of issues on it, to be quite honest with you. That's on the east side of Ridge Road from Valley View down to Morris Avenue. The administration had talked with all the property owners when we were in design earlier this spring. If anybody saw the construction out there, there were a couple properties that changed hands. And over the past few weeks, the property owners, or the people that bought those properties, came to the forefront and were very much against the project. We met with the property owners as a whole out there last week because we have to get, as you know, with sidewalk projects and trail projects, most of the time you put those facilities right up against the property line, so you have room to store snow on the roadside. So we need temporary easements from each of the properties in order to grade from the new sidewalk back into the properties. And a few of them are refusing to give easements at this point in time. So we're working through a couple of options to further discuss with them. And we're working with the contractor on their schedule. If I was a betting man, I would put money down that we'll be constructing it in the spring, not this fall still. But we'll be working through that one. And that project, I mentioned that one last because that dovetails a little bit into our planning meetings that are coming up. So before I do that, I just wanted to see if there's any questions, if we're still catching everything.
Can that trail be constructed without an easement? I mean, for the construction debris, as they're building it, or is it? I'm assuming it would cost more to do it that way.
Currently, there's about 9 feet of right of way between the back of the curb and the right of way. If you put this up, the option is to give as much snow storage as you can for the residents, because this would be resident maintained sidewalk.
Yeah.
You can move that sidewalk anywhere within there. So yes, the answer is yes, you can move the sidewalk to the middle, if you will, of that 9 feet.
Less snow storage.
There's less snow storage that they would then be schlepping off the sidewalk elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a good motivator.
Yep.
So the people that are having the issue, is it pertain to being able to park cars there during a Packer game?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's absolutely one of them. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
What is Hanson Road, Circle Drive, where they're working there? Are those roads going to be cut off or closed? They're doing all, it looks like they're doing big, whatever they're doing there, I don't know.
Yeah, the Green Bay Met Sewage District's relaying the interceptor sewer that goes along the creek through there.
Okay,
So yes, they'll be cutting across the roadway with that sewer at some point.
so in other words, the road's going to be shut off eventually for a while or not?
Yeah, probably for a day when they cut across. They have to do it in halves.
Okay, so in other words, Circle Drive would be cut off and Hanson Road would be cut off. Is that going to go all the way through to the highway,
The work starts just south of the 172-41 interchange. Goes underneath,
Yeah,
of course, the highway.
right.
Goes south across Hanson and will end just south of Circle Drive where it ties back in.
Yeah, I see it, 'cause there are lots of work back in there.
Yeah,
You know, went all the way to Circle. I saw that this weekend when I drove down Circle.
yep, their reconstruction project goes to that limit.
Yeah,
Now, out of curiosity, with them making such a wide swath through the woods and everything, is that then going to be able to be traversed by people like walking their dogs and walking? I know there's not an official trail or anything there, but I mean, is that, I'm just kind of curious, because that sometimes unofficially when stuff like that happens, you start to see rabbit paths kind of start to appear, and people go, I can cut through from here and go all the way to Hanson.
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know, I'm just kind of curious if you've seen that, or if that's all just private property, or if they're really gonna plant stuff on each end to keep people out of there. I don't know.
Great question. I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately.
And that sewer and water, that's what that is?
Just sewer,
Just sewer.
yes.
So first thing I thought of when I saw that, I thought that'd be fun to walk the dog down that whole thing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it turns into almost like a unofficial walking path,
Yeah.
even though it's not graded out or anything.
Yeah.
Right. It is all private property through there, so I'm sure that I would assume they would put some type of plantings at the end to try and mask it, to do so. Sure. It isn't like some of the waterways or drainage ways through the village. It's on a conservancy, so there's a public area through there. This area is not. It's private property right up to the creek line. This just what this project is that is some of the lower area in the village, and that's where all the sewers within the village flow to. So they flow to the lowest point, and then there's a big interceptor sewer that catches it and travel, and it takes it all the way to the Green Bay Met treatment plant at the mouth of the Fox River. So this is one of the big interceptor sewers that collects about 70% of the wastewater within the village and transports it north.
Is there a pump station that takes care of that?
This is all by gravity.
Like gravity?
Yeah. So
And it goes right up to Highway 170, right up to 172.
yep, and then makes
It won't go underneath there.
it goes underneath it and starts working its way. Well, let's see, it starts working its way east and then north and out through the village down by Old Broadway. So it snakes its way on through a lot of twists and turns back through the village. The Ridge Road project and some of the, I'll call it political / communication difficulties that popped up on this one. We're at the tail end of there were a number of projects, not only road reconstruction projects, but sidewalk and trail construction projects that were part of some of the planning out of the 2008, 2009 plan. Not all of them were slated, but a number of them were, and we're at the tail end of those projects. So as the next phase of TIF projects comes through, there's a number of projects that came from the 2018 plan. There's a number of other projects that the village is looking at doing in the TIF plan. And one of the things Steve and I have mentioned is that we feel it's going to be a good thing moving forward. The village gets a lot of opportunities for development projects, reconstruction projects, and they come through at a high rate or a fast rate where you're designing them and constructing them in short order. Some of these other projects that I'm going to group strictly road reconstruction projects, projects that have sidewalk and trails associated with, that the village take those projects and take a year. Say if we're looking to build those in 2020, start the design process in 2021, so that meetings can be held, that can all be laid out. Instructions can be discussed, alternates can be discussed, it can be worked out so that it isn't happening during the design process when the design process is being done just in time to get it bid out and constructed. It will help eliminate some of these types of issues from coming forward in the future. So that's why I brought this Ridge Road project up. We haven't had a lot of them hit hurdles like that, but it did expose an area that we can change how we operate. And everybody knows TIF projects and development projects and things of that nature can come at a very rapid rate and then are needed to be completed in short amount of time frame. I'm not saying those projects like that won't happen again, but where we can, that we take the time that we need to flesh out those types of, I'll call them political details, because when you deal with people who maybe don't quite understand, don't agree, don't like, the last thing you want to do is have them upset to the point that they start showing up in front of political bodies and showing displeasure, because that can bring you to a point where it slows other projects down. And that's where you have to do a little balancing work, and that's going to be some of our discussion moving forward on some TIF projects. Some examples, now the West Main Trail has been discussed a multitude of times. The property owners have been talked to. That one's moving along just fine. That's the process, or that's what we'd like to see followed in the future here. There were just a couple of these last regular sidewalk projects that the village wanted to move forward on. It was just that some of the discussions, some of input, if you will, changed because of property owner change, and put us in a spot where we had to take a step back for a moment. So it isn't pushing anything off, it's more so starting the process a little bit sooner once the village decides they want to move forward with projects, that we get the public component of it out there sooner, even if the design isn't completed, if there's a concept, so that it can be discussed and questions can be taken and things can be modified before it goes to design. And that's how we used to do things. We just hit a stretch here of a few years where there were a number of projects that were just coming back to back to back, and there was just the time of the day just wasn't there to do that. So not a huge change, just what we're going to be discussing for how we handle projects in the future. And then I think the TIF project meeting's in 2 weeks, so it would probably be at a future meeting once budgets are approved and we know what projects we have going on or slated for the next couple of years, and I can update you at that point in time.
Good.
That's all I've got.
Yep, thanks for the update.
Doug, this is Kyle. And maybe this is outside of the scope of what you were prepared to talk about, but we sent a survey out roughly a year ago discussing sidewalks on Cormier Road on the south side. And I haven't heard anything on that for a while. Is there anything moving on that, or what's going on? Is that just something that's going to be discussed in the future?
I think it's in the TIF plan to be worked on, and that's one of them. That is a great example. Another one I'll use is there was discussion of the sidewalk on Hanson Road from up by, or excuse me, the sidewalk, yes, on Hanson Road from the Creekwood Apartments, is it? Down to Oneida Street, down to Holmgren Way. That's another one that's on the radar to be done. And there are estimates to do it, and it's in the TIF plan. But those projects are very big public involvement, political involvement type projects. The Cormier Road's a great example. On the north side of Cormier Road, a lot of that sidewalk, I believe, is safe routes to school and is maintained by the village. The south side would not be, as it currently stands. That is something you're going to want to discuss with the people in that area before you move forward. You can have the plans ready and everything set to go, but that has to be, and I think that was part of the survey was, are you okay with it if you have to maintain it? those are the types of things you want to talk through in advance of the design work and the construction happening so that you don't impact.
About 50/50.
Right. Hanson Road would be another good example. There's some sidewalk on the north side. On the south side, as you get down by Culver's, Wendy's, that area, there is a sliver of right of way. So that means there's going to be easement that you'll need just to put the sidewalk on. And then you'll be pushing snow onto the sidewalk that they would have to then maintain and get off of there. Again, it's not insurmountable, but the last thing you want to do is build it and then say, oh, by the way, guess what? Have a good time. Have a good time with it. You want to have those discussions in advance so you don't have public disapproval as you get further into it, because then it delays time and costs you money for additional work.
But before you go, could you take a peek at 9B? Because they're going to ask you on that one. What you found out about.
Touchless automatic walking units.
I think those were cross prohibited.
There's also the pedestrian signs were under Doug's 9A.
Okay, the pedestrian signs. I have some costs on them. You want to brief me again as to what the intent was behind them?
Sure. The intent was we were trying to figure out ways, Doug, of educating the community about proper walking on the street, because our walking use is way up, but has actually increased some additional walkers walking on the wrong side, walking with traffic versus against traffic. And so we've tried to educate multiple ways, but we thought putting it right there and getting some signs where you actually put it on, so it'd be on the wrong side of the street. So when a person sees it, they know they're walking on the wrong side of the street, and that we could select some major thoroughfares where we see that happening. We thought maybe not every street, but distribute them around the community a little, and even at the end of a year, maybe even move them to another area where the public safety has spotted a lot of individuals, or we have seen a lot of people that were walking on the wrong side. But it was a means to educate them, Doug. And we thought it was wasn't a real expensive way, and it would address the person who's doing it wrong, because they would be the ones that could read it, because they look up and the sign says walk on the left facing traffic.
Okay.
So that was the reason behind it, Doug, and they're used around different parts. I know there's some up in Door County and others that have these to try to just educate people. And I don't know what the percent is, Doug, but I can still go out tonight and take a ride around, and I'll still find, I don't know, 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 that are on the wrong side of the street.
Yep. And if you drive over by LaRue Lane about 5:30 tonight, you'll be able to catch me doing so. There's a stretch between LaRue Lane and Cormier Road on Santa Barbara. I run on the wrong side of the road to get over, so I'm only crossing cross streets. I'm crossing fewer cross streets when I go over to Cormier Road to get onto the sidewalk. So
I think we heard that excuse from a couple other people too, that it was an easier way.
Jason, if you want to swing over to LaRue Lane, you can put me in cuffs around 5:30 tonight for doing so.
Jason writing it down.
Yeah.
That was our thought behind it. My thought originally, and I brought it to the committee.
No, and I had looked up costs on it. Roughly it's without putting a separate pole in, just the sign and the attaching equipment, that there's something else there to attach it to.
Right.
Is roughly in the neighborhood of $55 to $65.
Okay. Good investment.
Yep. Yeah, Randy, I was on Timber this morning and there was 3 different, and what causes is you're walking the other way. So now you got to get out in the lane to get around them. So they are doing it. I'm not sure why. You would think somebody just common sense, but I get it. Some people just normally walk, but I wouldn't think you'd want with your back to the traffic if you just thought about what could happen with people on their phone or picking something up off the floor or whatever.
Yeah, very much. So what's the process for that, budget process, or is that a petty cash?
That would be a budget process one.
Okay, now,
The days of petty cash have been gone about 15 years, I would say, unfortunately.
and it's against the rule to say sponsored by Bell Hospital, huh?
I don't have any idea on that. If somebody donates money towards it, I know people have donated money towards the American flags, towards the Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
If a facility would donate money towards don't walk on the side of the street signs, I'm sure the village could make that work in some way.
Because if it's budget, we're talking another year, right?
Oh, best case. I'm sure you've all heard the budget here at the village for next year, and this would be considered something above and beyond. Just funding our normal operations for next year is going to be very very meticulous budget season to make that work out. So I don't mean to poo-poo it. I'm just being honest with you.
I'm trying to save lives, that's all.
So Doug, if somebody did donate the money, are you in the position that you would have the people that would be able to move them around? I'm assuming that wouldn't be very often, but once we've had them in a location for a month or whatever, would you guys be willing to make that happen?
Not moving them every other month someplace, no. That, to be quite honest with you, we don't have the time. We have some other work that has not been done over the past 2 years that we're pushing to get the manpower and time to do so. So putting up and taking down signs at different locations every month or so sounds simple, but it does take the manpower to do so, and we don't. I can't honestly tell you that we have it to do.
So what would they actually be mounted on?
I would say in most areas they'd be mounted to the power poles in the area, and then
okay.
They're also, where there are maybe speed limit signs or no parking signs or things of that nature.
Yeah, no parking limit.
Where you have the metal poles, they'd be mounted on there.
Would it be okay with the village if you had volunteers move them?
I think there are lots of options we could look at, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That isn't to say that Doug said volunteers can go out and install them. That is to say that there's options out there that can be discussed.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I know my wife and other people, they volunteer to clean up the park, so I don't see this as there's a liability there too, right?
Right. Well, you see it in Alloway too, where the folks used to go out and take care of the islands on Webster Avenue. I think that's
Yep.
We need to do things like that to try and help out. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do something else.
The touchless locks. Push the button. You just wave your hand.
Yeah, our main focus right now on the signalized intersections and the pedestrian crossings across them, would that be correct? Our main focus right now is getting the pedestrian countdown timers installed on all of our traffic signals through the village. And we're about 2/3 of the way there. That's our main push right now, is to get those done, to get us upgraded from the old fashioned walk, don't walk signals. Those have push buttons that you have to use, and getting access to all of those is something that we want to work on as well. The touchless ones, I was only able to check a couple of locations, and right now they're pretty costly. That isn't to say the price won't come down, that once we have all of our intersections, if you will, set up with the pedestrian countdown timers, that we can't explore that option. But just village budget-wise right now, they're pretty expensive to do. Having said that, there are hazard elimination grants. There are other grants you can go after to possibly fund things of that nature that we can look into.
What do they cost?
I had it written down and I didn't bring it with me, I'm sorry.
It was like $600 or $550.
This price. Have we given any, I mean, this is some cities, I just got the article here from Madison. They've asked their pedestrians not to use crosswalk buttons just because of the issue of COVID-19. The very high spread opportunity. Have we given any more thought then to just turning our lights, our crossing things onto automatic and put them on a countdown automatically so people don't have to touch them? I know we've talked about that in the past, but now we're in a little different environment. And when you see people pressing a button, a kid, adults pressing a button, the next thing you know, their nose is itching and they're rubbing it all over their face. And that's why cities like Madison are asking pedestrians not to use crosswalk buttons. Didn't know we could reconsider the automatic going to countdown. Not have to press the button at all.
Are you looking for a response from me?
Well, I don't know who makes that decision. I don't know who told us no last time. We've talked about this 5, 8, 6, 7 years ago, and now there's a little different reason for it. So that's why I was just kind of reintroducing, and maybe it's us trying, maybe it's Mike, you have to try to tell us what the channels are if the committee is interested in proposing something like this, what the channel is. I think it's important. I think anything we can do to create some safety in any area, we should be doing it, especially if it's available to us.
I would recommend the first thing you do is to send that request, whether it be to Mike or to Rex or myself, so that it can be forwarded on to Brown County Highway Department, their signal division, so that they can respond back to when you put the pedestrian crossings in automatic control, where it kicks on regardless if there's somebody there that adds or deducts time to the traffic signal, to the traffic operation portion of it.
Right.
I'm guessing where you may have gotten pushback in the past would be for Brown County, because Brown County is a county highway, so their reply may be different. If it's going to deduct time from moving traffic through, say, an Oneida Street or a South Broadway, Wabi Lane, Hanson and Cormier in some areas. But I think that would be the first step, is to get what that might add or subtract, so that the recommendation can then be taken into consideration with all of the options and all of the knowledge in place.
Okay. Maybe, Mike, we can put that on next month's agenda to talk about it.
Sure.
Could you also, Doug, you mentioned some grants. Is there a list of those that are potentially available to do things like, you know, the wave on a crossing button and things like that? Is there a listing out there of where those grant applications can go to if the group maybe wanted to pursue some? I know that's a big thing nowadays. People are applying for grants because of tight money.
The resource that I always go to is with the state DOT. Sandy Carpenter at the state DOT.
Okay, thank you.
Is just to see what's out there. She has her finger on the pulse of a pretty fair number, or she's able to point us in the right direction.
And one last thing I had, Doug, before you kind of tied to that, is you had talked about looking at all of our signals are we working on identifying where we're not accessible? AODA, people in wheelchairs that can't reach the button, people who are blind. You see people trying now to cross Oneida, and we have people in the community that can't see. And I just wondered, are we looking at where we've got some where the pole is maybe 3 feet away from any access to it?
Right.
So there's no way to get a wheelchair there. There's no way a blind person's going to get there. So are we kind of working on creating a list and trying to fix those over time? Can you kind of give us an update on that?
Yep, what you exactly said is what's going on. That is one of our projects also related to the TIF work, where we can go in and you drive throughout the village, you can find probably 6 or 8 locations where that's exactly what's needed.
Okay. Now you got that one on, there's one on Morris, there's others where it's kind of what I always compare it to is a person says, yeah, I'm pretty handicapped accessible. I only got 2 steps. Well, it's kind of the same thing that the corner's pretty accessible, but one of them you can't get to, you know? So
Correct.
Thanks for working on that.
Yep.
Any other questions for Doug?
Nope, that was good.
Okay.
Jason, you got a half hour to get out there to arrest me. I'm gonna get home. I gotta pick up my wife from work, and then you can arrest me, like I said, along Santa Barbara between Cormier and LaRue. I'll be running on the wrong side. I'm just gonna be honest.
Maybe I'll go out for a bike ride and just bike past you.
Okay, very good, very good. Have a good one, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks, Doug.
Number 10, review and possible action on 2018 plan projects.
I think we're still on 10C or 9C.
Oh, okay. Request for signalized crosswalk on Hanson and Ashland.
Yeah, so just as a follow-up, we received a email from Stephen and Mary Ballum only about a month ago, commenting on the fact that bike lanes on Hanson, both direction, but when you get to Ashland, there's no way to cross Ashland if there's not a car that sets off the stoplights that are there. So we took their request, kind of shot it to both Brown County as well as the state DOT. Steve, or Mr. Ballum, I believe is his name. Randy Asman, sorry, Randy Asman from the DOT received the letter and let us know, sure, that sounds like a good idea. We can do that in a couple of weeks. I'm like, what? It's fastest turnaround from the DOT, and then literally within a week, he said, oh, one of my crews had time, so we installed, now they're touch buttons again, but they installed buttons where you push and it changes the lights without a car having to go up and activate them. So that was a positive. So just an FYI on that. This agenda item was really going to be about, when we first submitted it for the agenda packet, it was going to be about, you know, here's what we're doing, here's what we're hoping to accomplish, but this is more of a after the fact because the DOT moved fairly quick on it. So
Do we need to send them a nice thank you letter?
he was already thanked.
That's
I
incredible.
really did. I said, outstanding. It was outstanding. It was real quick. It was very quick.
Okay.
And Rex, I will tell you, I have already used that button.
Good.
So I don't have to cross against the red and duck through traffic.
Yeah, and I'm assuming then it works properly and the way it's supposed to?
It did the time I used it. I was out there just a week or so ago and
Good.
Was pleased to have it there.
All right, good progress. Oh, neat. Okay, should we move to number 10?
Onward.
Review and possible action on the 2018 plan projects. Discussion and action on the 2018 plan project status and recommendation. Dale, were you gonna update
Well, so the issue was, and it's almost 5 o'clock. I don't know that we need to do it. We've been putting this off for quite a bit of time, but so we did it. We sorted it. Those are the only ones on our entire spreadsheet that don't have a status or a recommendation that we have left to put something in those columns. So we thought we'd take them one at a time and just see where we're at with each one of them. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to pick off a couple of them. Like the first one is North Road. It says on-street accommodations. Not sure what all that means. I'm assuming that's something for better safety for the bicyclist.
Well, Dale, if I remember from a couple of years ago, before you were on the committee, somebody told me or said that at one time there was hopes to put bike lanes along North Road, and that was going to be done as part of the Highway 41 reconstruction project. And when it came down to actually do the project, there wasn't adequate space to put bike lanes on there. Now, maybe that wasn't the way it actually happened, but that was my recollection of a conversation with I can't tell you who. So it maybe that's left over from the original bike project or the bike and ped plan that is really not going to happen.
There was also talk of putting a sidewalk on North Road.
Yeah.
Or a pathway to hook up with that pedestrian bridge that was going to go over into Pioneer Park. And when that pedestrian bridge went away, I know the sidewalk went away, or the pathway.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what that one was talking about, but that's what I remember on that.
Yeah, I agree. Because they've redone the road now and it's nothing there, so.
I don't think
So status is not going to happen?
So,
I don't think there's enough room for a bike lane.
no, it's up to the wall, isn't it, some places there?
Well, the road, I don't think is wide enough for a bike lane, plus the two lanes that are one way, one the other way.
Take it.
Well, you might as well take it out, huh?
All right, so then number 5, it had recommendation. Apparently this might have had to do with I-41 as well, because I'm seeing that in the recommendations, multi-use path from Cormier to Morris, connects Pilgrim Ray to Morris Avenue.
Yeah, that's when we wanted to build it next to the wall.
Okay.
But I think some of the issues where it was an interstate, you couldn't do it. I know that was part of the discussion at the time.
Well, I think at one time in the county's bike and ped plan, they had multi-purpose paths or something all along 41. I remember seeing that someplace. That was, I guess, hopefully going to be done as part of the reconstruction of the highway. And for whatever reason, it never happened. And I think it could have been, nobody really ever pushed for it. So it just sort of went by the wayside. Ideally, it would be nice to have a path along there, but that's pretty tough to do. It's the right of way for the interstate, and I don't think that's an insurmountable problem, although there's issues with wetlands, but Cabela's didn't have a problem with wetlands. So, that would be a nice connector, not only that intersection or that stretch, but, further along, that would be the way that cuts through the community, both Ashwaubenon and De Pere and Green Bay, you know, that could be a nice way to connect, you know, Mountain Bay Trail to Fox River Trail or something. But, you know, that's a kind of a, you know, a wish list type thing. You know, and maybe, you know, maybe from a cost standpoint, it's never practical. So I guess you know, I don't know if we want to just discard that or just keep it in there and hopefully we could get it sometime.
Yeah, you're saying like put something in your future possibility or something like that?
Yeah.
I do remember
Okay.
at one time there was talk about a path going, like Kyle said, but I think that just kind of went by the wayside.
I want to say that the DOT kind of makes that. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it was for lack of asking or for exploring it. I think the DOT said no.
Yeah, that could be. But I know it just went away.
Okay, how about the number 6, the Oregon Street sidewalk, both sides to Morris due to concerns over increased vehicle traffic?
Where we put the pedestrian trail was put in from Lombardi Avenue to Morris on the west side of Argonne. It's a 10-foot wide path. I don't see that happening on the east side personally. And there hadn't ever been any discussion on at any other level that I've heard of about that particular thought, but I know a lot of time was put into design and then install the west side of Argonne.
So I just want, because I want to fill this in after we're done. So Rex, you're saying 10-foot pedestrian trail was installed on which side?
West side.
Okay. All right, and then we got the Oneida Street, east side from I-41 to Vans Honda.
Future. The next one finishes that all the way to Hanson. So the next two would the full east side.
Okay, so number 8 and 9.
8 and 9
Randy?
would, yeah. I'd make me
Okay.
Why would we stop at that?
Pardon?
I said, why is number 8 and 9 divided out? Why wouldn't?
No, I was wondering, Rex. I couldn't remember why it was done.
Yeah, we've had this discussion. I remember this now.
We should really just say from Highway 41 to Hanson.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Make one out of it.
Okay.
Because otherwise you've got a sidewalk, and then where do people go once they hit Vans? They got to run across Oneida Street to hit the other side of the sidewalk?
Go inside and buy a car.
There you go.
Number 10.
Right, so that takes care of 8 and 9. 10 is Allied Street, both sides from Griffiths to Wabi.
Yeah.
Future?
Yeah, I don't know if you need both sides, but it'd be nice to have one there. There's a lot of people that walk that back road to get the quick trip and stuff.
Okay.
But,
Cormier Road is number 13 is future. I mean, we talked about that.
Well,
yeah.
Doug just mentioned it's part of the TIF planning.
Correct.
Okay, got that. 37. Holborn Way from Hanson to Glory.
Not heard that one.
Actually, I see bicycles on there fairly regularly.
Yeah, pretty heavy, isn't it?
You got that big apartment complex down there by just south of the Army.
No, these are guys with lunch pails. Okay, could be future.
Did I hear future or what?
Sure.
Because the last thing I want to do is delete them if there's
Yeah,
a
no,
possibility, right?
that was a good one.
What's 48? Claude Alloway.
That's when they redo the bridge.
Yep.
That's very future.
Yep.
I would say so.
Okay, 22.
The same as 48.
Same thing.
Okay, I didn't read it. All right.
It's just on both plans.
34 is what? Southridge, Hanson to Wabi.
That was
We've
just,
talked about that one recently again.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
We've talked about that one. That would be on the east side.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, that's bike lanes. I'm sorry.
yeah, and that road was just re-blacktop.
Yeah.
No, well, not all the way to Wabi, but I mean close enough.
We would still want that, wouldn't we, at some point, if we could?
Yeah, I would think so, because you could take Wabi up to that trail, and that would just sort of make a connector route. If you had bike lanes there, you can get them to Wabi, and Wabi goes up to the trail, and it goes up to those trails through that park.
Did we, you guys got to help me because you've been around us longer than me. Was there something with sidewalks from Hanson to Wabi?
We had it one time discussed that.
It's still in there.
It hasn't been discussed in Public Works at all.
Okay.
They redid the road, but that.
Yeah.
Well, let's leave this on here because, we'll review these again at some point. Just because they say future doesn't mean we won't want to go back and look at them, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to see how the budget's doing. All right, so we're on 36, last one, Parkview Road. Wide outside lanes.
Railroad crossing.
That'll never get done.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, they need to work on the ones down by Caterpillar and first.
The ones on Caterpillar on Hanson?
Yes.
Yeah, that's deteriorating pretty fast.
Yeah, well, they're not as bad as the one that's on Parkview.
Not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use that a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe not going east, but you come back west, you'll get a big surprise.
Huh.
Just went over them yesterday.
I don't come back west, I just go east.
All right. All right, so that would be future as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we're good to go.
Okay. So, do we want to move on to number 11? Everybody satisfied with 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Rex, give us your reports.
I've been talking about them as we go, so I got nothing.
Okay.
Well, no, the only thing I can say is Main Avenue Trails continues to be worked on. So they're in the process of working on each piece of property. I think they've determined the amount of right of way that's needed to be put into the agreement or needed to be purchased to accommodate that pedestrian trail from Sand Acres Drive to Highway 41. So I want to say they're putting all that together in 2 different contracts, and hopefully within the next couple months we'll once we hear about any grant opportunities, although I've heard that the multimodal grant, we did not get it, but we haven't been officially notified. So once, I guess it's a wait and see on the Main Avenue Trail.
I talked to Ed a while ago and told him, be patient, there's no answers yet, you know, this is good, this will take some time.
Yeah.
But I see he's had some trees cut down in his yard now.
I think that the biggest holdup with us getting a grant for that Main Avenue Trail is we haven't purchased the right of way yet. The DOT is very reticent to give anybody grant money for a project that involves land that hasn't been bought yet, or that they don't have in hand.
Yeah.
So.
We don't have a DOT guy today, do we?
Not that I know of.
Public safety, Jason.
I have nothing to report right now.
Okay. Nobody solution in schools. Let's see what this is. Natalie's not here. So, number 12, Kyle.
Well, I brought this up. I've been biking in some of the surrounding communities, and I don't want to beat this to death, and I know we're running long on time, but and some of this is partially, I guess, my impatience and my frustration, but it seems to me that the pace of progress in the village is, you know, sort of moves in glacial times, and Doug addressed part of that indirectly. You know, it takes a long time to work through the wheels of government, and I guess I hadn't considered that. You know, but there are other things that sort of came up, and one of them he alluded to when we discussed the bike lanes on Cormier Road, where the village board couldn't make a decision, and it went back and forth, and it just seems like it just takes forever to get anything done. And partially, maybe I'm just impatient and frustrated, and that's the way it is in government. You know, but I look at other communities, and maybe it's only my perception, but things happen faster there than they do in the village. I'll just give you two quick examples. On West Walnut, from between Baird and Webster, the city of Green Bay put bike lanes there. You know, they took out one lane of traffic and put bike lanes, and that seemed to happen pretty fast. And I just lost track on the other one, but you know, the Flukies worked about a year and a half ago. They worked with the town of Ledgeview to do some bike routes, and, you know, and signage, and they had a comment period, and like 6 months later, the routes were up and the signs were up, and you know, that seemed to go pretty fast. And I don't know, maybe it's just my perception, but it seems like it takes the village a long time to do anything as far as bike and ped. I don't know, do other people feel that way, or maybe I'm just not seeing the big picture?
I think things move along here at a lot faster pace than you envision. And what you just mentioned in Green Bay, that was probably prioritized 2 to 3 years ago if there was federal or state DOT dollars in it. So these things take time when you got DOTs involved, and even worse when it's Fed money.
Yeah. Well, I guess I hadn't really considered that, but after hearing Doug talk, I kind of see that picture, or that piece of the picture.
The one facility that I haven't seen yet, but I've heard about, is in Marshfield. They've actually got welded up repair stations where there's a couple of wrenches and an air pump and a few other things along their bike trail. And I've yet to actually get a photograph of one of these. Apparently there's a few around the bike routes in Marshfield.
Well, there's some on the Fox River Trail in Green Bay, or De Pere, Alloy. I know where a couple of them are. And I think they got private grants to install them.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be judgmental after having to deal with the IRS and the federal government just trying to settle an estate. I feel sorry for Doug if he has to deal with anything like I've been dealing with the last 4 months. But anyways, so it'd be hard to be judgmental without knowing the facts.
Well, the Southern Bridge project has been going on for umpteen years, and it's close to making another major step within the next 2 months, but COVID kind of set that back a few months. And then there's always legislation changes that go on, so.
You know, I gotta jump in. Kyle, I know you're frustrated on some different things, but it's almost like I want to say I take somewhat of offense by what you just said. There's been a lot.
Well, and that's fine. You know, I'm willing to be corrected. I'm willing to be corrected if it's.
We finished up the lobby connection. We've been doing a lot of stuff on different park type items. Doug's been working on the Ridge Road sidewalk for a while. They've been dinking around with that Brookwood Avenue thing with the Titletown District for quite a while. We've got the Ashwaubenon River Bridge that, as Tiff pointed to it, that we're working with Grape on. Again, we're trying to do the Main Avenue Trail. I've been working with McMahon to get all the sites done. So there's a lot of stuff that's in the works right now. A lot of stuff that's in the works that either we've done or are continuing to do. So while some projects, yes, the wheels of progress go slow. On other things, I think we've had some great trail and different opportunities that we have been working on and that we've got completed. So I'm sorry, but I don't fully agree with you.
And that's fine. As I say, it could be my impatience, and I guess I am just not used to how long it takes everything to do in government. And after hearing Doug, I'm getting a better appreciation of that. So, you know, if I'm correct, if I'm incorrect, and I could be, I'm willing to be corrected on that.
There are some things that are moving slow, but there's other things that did move fairly quickly and got done.
I have noticed that the Press Gazette, which is, I don't care for in the first place, but a lot of your news articles are advertising, you know, like Green Bay has done this and Deer has done this.
You don't see that for Ashwaubenon.
And what?
You don't see that for Ashwaubenon.
And that's exactly right. And that's what I want to get at. You don't see it for the village of Ashwaubenon, but the other things are being advertised at this here. So, I mean, I think that's got part of it too, right? You know, so I think work is being done. I mean, I see it when I'm out there.
For a good long-term perspective, Kyle, attend the Brown County Planning Commission meetings, first Wednesday of the month. Our past month has 2 updates on the transportation plan that's almost 2 inches thick, and we have to do that every 2 or 3 years. So that'll give you a better idea of how long it takes to get this stuff in queue and get funding in line and actually start construction, you know, so. And rarely do we ever have anybody from the general public come and sit in on plan commission meetings, but they're worthwhile to attend. They really are.
Well, thanks for that invitation.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Any public comments on bicycling and walking? Hearing none, we'll move to 14. Next bike and ped meeting is Monday, October 12th, 2020. And Sue, you've got an agenda item
I do.
that was mentioned from Randy, I think it was? Okay.
Discussion on the touch list. If you want to further discuss.
Okay. So if everybody's happy, we can have a motion for adjournment.
I make the motion to adjourn.
What a good man.
Real quick, wait a minute. Real quick question for Randy. Randy, so I looked at your sheet where you had they gave you some pricing on that sign, but it said 5 inches by 7.5. And I should have asked Doug this when he was on board. He said $55. That's got to be a different size sign, right? Than 5 inches by 7.5 inches.
That seems, yeah, that could be a bigger size sign than that.
Mine was a regular, like a The one I was looking at was like a regular no parking or a speed limit sign.
Yeah, and that would make sense. I was looking at the quote and it had in there 5 inches by 7.5 inches.
From Doug?
No, from this sales and quotes returns from Chris Goodrich Technical Marketing Campbell Company.
That was for the waving one, wasn't it?
Oh, okay. All right.
That was a different, that was for the
All right.
button.
Okay, that
Right.
makes more sense. Thanks.
Yeah, that was just for the,
Yeah, yep. Got it.
okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, we have a motion, and I think we had a second for adjournment.
Yeah.
Aye,
That's it.
we stand
Aye.
adjourned.